Welcome to another episode of the OTTRED Spotlight podcast. You all know by now that the way I always introduce the amazing people that I get to interact with almost on a daily basis through the work that I do in Red Hole for the OTTRED line of business exposes me to some amazing people. The OTT broadcast and media sector is full of people that are not only well-intentioned, good-willed, and extremely progressive in their thinking, but they're also amazing people in terms of where they've come from, how they have carved the careers out for themselves that they've got, the anecdotes that they're able to share, and the lessons that they are able to provide to all of us when it comes to how we can advance our careers. The individual that I'm speaking to in this episode is nothing less than every single category that I've just touched on. Wim Ponnet is somebody who has had an amazing career. He's worked at some iconic brands, and I'm sure, knowing Wim as I do, that he's going to share some anecdotes with us that will be insightful, informative, and be able to interpret what's happened within the sector from a historical point of view to give us some insightful commentary on what might happen in the future. So Wim, welcome to the OTTRED Spotlight podcast.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Very good to be here. I'm sure it is a little bit warmer where you are than where I am.
Well, I'm lucky to be in the Middle East here in Dubai, and the temperature at the moment is absolutely glorious. For people watching on the LinkedIn Live or for listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, just give them a feeling for where you are in the world. Because when we spoke earlier this week, you were in London, but I gather you've moved.
I am just outside of Geneva today, in my comfortable in the comforts of my own office, where I can't harm or scare anyone, Chris. So it is a balmy -2 here this morning, and it's slightly overcast, so I don't know, we might get some snow for the weekend.
White Christmas. Wim, I want to start off by touching on something. Those that are watching on the LinkedIn Live will be able to see the aviation paraphernalia around you. Tell everybody why that is.
Well, I really am into flying airplanes. So I own a 1971 Piper Comanche, little 6-seater, which I fly as much as I possibly can. I do use it a little bit for business and travel. It's it's just one of these things that I find amazingly inspirational. Like it requires a very strategic and forward-thinking mindset to fly small airplanes into sometimes challenging situations. In particular, if you're really going to use them for business travel and things like that as well. So yeah, I'm a bit of an aviation geek.
I love that. I first discovered that about you, Wim, maybe 6 or 9 months ago on the OTTRED WhatsApp group, where we've got over 500 people in our sector from around the world. And I think everybody was traveling. In that instance, I think it was to something in London. It may have been IBC. Everyone else was saying, I'm at this airport, I'm traveling, there's a delay, blah, blah, blah. All of the different stories that group is full of from the friends and team that we have around the world. And then you put a picture on from the cockpit of your aircraft saying, no delays for me, guys, no delays for me, I'm good. And you were piloting yourself to an event in industry.
I think it was IBC, yes. Yes, it's very good actually, and Schiphol is a fantastic airport. Like, they just vector you in amongst all the big boys. You almost feel like a real pilot when you're when you're doing that.
I can imagine. Just quick, one more question on this topic. Move on to some other stuff. How long have you been flying for? Because getting a pilot's license is it's no small thing. You've got to do a certain number of hours in the air and all of that sort of stuff every year to maintain the license.
Yeah, so I started in 2011, which was sort of in the midst of my tenure at Yahoo. And so I was paddling kayaks professionally for a long time. I always jokingly say 20 kilos ago. And I was looking for so getting a little bit older, and to be honest, probably phasing out the kayaking part of my life a little bit. I did continue a little bit after that, but I was really looking for something to do that would be an equal challenge mentally. Is kayaking is also like running hard rivers is a, how do I say this? It's as much a mentally challenging activity as it is a physically challenging activity. You really need to be on the ball, and so I was looking for something probably slightly safer, equally mentally challenging, but something that could involve the family a little bit more. It's a very solitary thing to be working all week, being away for business, and then telling the missus on the weekend, "Well, I'm off now to go and run rivers." Not something that is future proofing your relationship, I think. So I said, I'm gonna try this flying thing, and so I got my license in 2012. I started flying in 2011, and then in between, um, so I was on gardening leave in between Yahoo and Endemol Shine, and I said I'm gonna take this to the next level, and so I got my instrument rating, commercial license, twin engine jet, all of that stuff after. And yeah, it really took it up a notch to say, well, if we're going to do this safely and sort of semi-proficiently, then yeah, you need to really have an instrument rating, and you need to fly in a very similar and professional way as the airliners do.
When it's a little bit glitchy and you've frozen, but let's carry on because I suspect it might be something to do with the weather where you are. Maybe that snow's coming. You've just mentioned some of the things that give people an insight into what you've done professionally, Wim, which is super impressive. You know, of all of the people that I know that I'm gifted enough to have relationships with, I always think of the career journey that you've had as one of the most compelling. You have, you're currently the president of EMEA for Quick Play, which is a pretty phenomenal organization. You've been the CEO of Fantech. You've worked at Endemol Shine Group from 2015 to 2021. And then at Yahoo, which is obviously a brand that everybody will know. You were the director of strategy and operations. You were SVP of EMEA, and you were chief of staff in your tenure there at Yahoo. Which one of those roles ignited you the most, Wim, and why?
I think all of them. So when I think of my career, it's part of it, I think, is planned. So I think you should always be thinking ahead in terms of where you want to be and what you want your life to look like. And I know from what I know about you, Chris, it's very much the same. There is an element of lifestyle choice in there, and there's an element of, well, how do I fit what I do behind there? And I think of myself as being the CEO of me. I have an interest in a variety of things, and I try to, with the experience you build over the years, I try to be using the skills, the network, and the ability and capabilities I have to put that to use to go and do what it is I really want to do. And I've had a fair element of luck in terms of how these things came about. So moving into Coca-Cola very early in my career, meeting the right people there, working on the Euro 2008, being dropped in at a stage where things were probably going slightly off the rails, bringing them back on, and then being allowed to go and do other things, working on route to market and profitability. That was a challenge, and I think you grow through challenge, and the challenge you accept. And Yahoo, quite frankly, was no different. I had 5 CEOs in my first year at Yahoo. I've worked with some amazingly smart people at Yahoo, where you're just blown away by the things people have built in an entrepreneurial way, got acquired, stayed with a big global. And so I think that's what I would take away really from the Yahoo days. And you walk into any big tech company anywhere around the globe at the moment, you will meet ex-Yahoo alums who are working there, are in leading positions, and are doing. Walk into Facebook, walk into TikTok, you walk into any of these organizations, and there are some amazing leaders from Yahoo left there, because that company really was the true online pioneer. You think about,
Yeah.
listen, you think
And,
about there was Flickr. You think about Messenger, there was Messenger. You think about Search, there was Search. Like, all of these things were part of that big beast that was Yahoo. Unfortunately, it's been through iterations in the past, but the company is still around. It's still going strong. It's owned by Apollo now. I think they are working on a revival. There's probably going to be another public listing there. So super, super exciting business. And then I think Endemol Shine was an entirely different beast.
your role at Endemol, Wim? What was your role there? I mean, you were in the senior leadership team. Endemol's an iconic brand when it comes to formats and broadcasting and all that sort of stuff. What was that like? What did you do?
Yeah, so we put Endemol and Shine together in 2015, right? They were two separate businesses. One was owned by on the Shine side by Fox, like 21CF, run in that way, right? Some amazing creative people in there, probably a little bit more focused on the scripted side of things than we had at Endemol, which had a very strong background in entertainment. Those two businesses were put together. They were owned by private equity. There was a fair level of debt put on the business. Let's just call it like that. So, in my role there I was the chief strategy and commercial officer for the business. The goal was to bring the business into this century, focus more on clients that were active within the digital space. We had very small parts of our revenue lines coming from those digital business, what we call the FANGs, and the Facebooks, the Amazons, the Apples, the Netflixes, the Googles. Those businesses shift that, very much look at how to go about monetizing the catalog. And I suspect we're going to come back on that later as we talk about fast channels and direct to consumer strategies and things like that. I looked after IT. I looked after the tech side of our business, building the platforms and looking at that, corporate development, M&A. So the acquisitions and the add-ons into the business, ultimately sales process of the business, because when Rupert, in his great wisdom, decided to sell his entertainment business to Disney, our shareholding moved over to Disney, and it became very clear that for Disney, running a business with the complexities of a beast like Endemol Shine, 5,000 employees, 2 billion in revenue, but spread over 30 territories, it's just not their business model. So we took the business on a roadshow. We managed to sell in 2019. It took the European Union until July of 2020 to rubber stamp that deal, after which I left and I set up my own investment company called Fantech Capital with 3 business partners, with the aim to go and acquire IP within the sports space, to go and help build fan engagement and monetize around that. That is a business that is still running. I'm still a shareholder in that business. The investments we've made, they are running on the side. And then I run my own advisory business, through which I contract with QuickPlay as their president for Europe, Middle East, and Africa, with the very clear aim to go and develop this business, which is another amazing story in itself, right? Founder-led business, 4 co-founders in that business. There's Paul, there's Juan, there is Andre, and there is Gotham, who launched this business, sold it to AT&T in 2017, went to build AT&T Play. They built the platform there. There was a lot of money poured into the development of the product. And in 2020, in the midst of COVID, AT&T was repivoting their business model a little bit. The founders said, well, actually, why don't we buy the business back of you and go after other customers as well? And since 2020 to now, there has been this constant growth in delivering. So our involvement with the Super Bowl, the Fox, the Weather Channel, AMG, Madison Square Garden, and a lot of these other businesses right across the globe, right? We're talking about Yes Network, AHA in India. All of these businesses benefit from our tier one positioning and the future proofing of their streaming service through the modularity and the cloud native nature of our product. So I see a massive opportunity for us as a business to grow here. And at the moment, that is what I am really excited about in terms of helping the guys and the team to build this and take it to the next level.
The story with Quick Play that you just described, you know, the AT&T sale and buying it back, kind of reminds me a little bit of what Cinemedia did. You know, when Cisco bought Cinemedia and the entity that was before, and then the guys bought it back because they realised actually that they'd got a new lease of life around what they could do in the third chapter of its existence with it. How does that feel now, being such an intrinsic part of creating what that third chapter will constitute in the Quick Play story? Because you're working with what, 4 founders, they've all got an intimacy with the whole story. What's the complexion of that like, working as the new member of the boy band?
Yeah, so I in many ways it feels like a startup again. So you are I am at the moment a little bit orphaned here in the region, right? So I am very dependent on support from our teams in Chennai and Toronto on the engineering side. I am in a massive learning curve again, because this is an element. I have a background in tech. I have a background in media. This puts the two together. You are dealing with people who are way smarter and better versed on the technicalities of how these things are built. But coming from a customer background where you understand the challenges, because I've faced those challenges, right, as an IP owner and as a content producer, a distributor. So from that perspective, it is incredibly refreshing to be working in a company where you're either coding or you're selling. And I mean selling in the best possible way, right? It is taking care of our customers' needs. Like the entire business is focused around that. There is no fluff, there is no fat. There is you're coding, you're building products, and you're shipping products, or you're taking care of our customer. And that customer focus, it's incredibly refreshing in the sense that it focuses the mind to go and deliver what you promise your customers to deliver, and then actually finding and working with new fantastic organizations within that tier one segment. It's fantastic.
Let's talk about your excitement, because I know this from our many previous conversations around creating, identifying, and then marching enthusiastically towards new frontiers. Wim, that's part of the signature of your style. But for those that don't really know Quick Play, just give us a kind of 60-second introduction to what is the business, what's the proposition, and what are the dimensions of the business at the moment.
Yeah. So we are a Toronto headquartered business, and this is where the business was set up and is running from. The nexus of our operations is probably Toronto and Chennai in India. We have offices around the globe, in Hong Kong, in Singapore, Geneva, Mumbai, and New Delhi. Our positioning is very firmly within the tier one segment, and I will explain a little bit why. So when we explain the way we work with our customers is we are in my view, and I genuinely mean this, and I'm not just saying this because I work for the company, but it is the first fully cloud native. There is no legacy architecture that we need to drag along anyway. The business started delivering video streaming technology for Blackberries, just to give you an idea about how long ago you're talking about. When it was acquired by AT&T, a lot of effort and money was poured into developing the product. It is fully cloud native. There is no reliance on any on-prem technology. It is incredibly modular. You're probably talking over 300 different modules. And when we speak with our customers, we say our core differentiator is that we genuinely believe that architecture matters. How you are going to build your product, well, the product we are going to bring with you, we have a product focus around everything we do, is that it's going to future-proof your business, because we are a fully API-led business. So if you are working with an AV pipeline at the beginning, you want to keep that, we will seamlessly integrate. If you already have a player, we will seamlessly integrate. If you have an identity management element of it that you prefer working with, we will do that. There are 300 modules that work in synergy. It's the helicopter of aviation, whereas an airplane has wings and is very, they all sort of look the same. A helicopter is essentially moving parts that fly together in formation. This is what we are. You can essentially go and pick and choose. And the beauty of that, Chris, is that when I say it helps you future-proof your business, is if tomorrow NFTs or sports organizations start to become something that is going to really start delivering value, or the metaverse starts to become something that actually gets integrated at scale within tier one customers and those organizations, we have those modules. They not only work, but they are available, and you're not dependent on anybody else in the pipeline. You get a single tenant. So whether you work with Azure, whether you work with AWS, or whether you work with GCP, the Google Cloud Platform, and we've been Google Cloud Partner of the Year 2 years in a row because of the way we are engineered and because of the way we integrate, is that if somebody else who is a quick play customer has a pipeline that is going to integrate 3 elements, you're not dependent on that pipeline at all. You have your own cloud instance, and your product is unique and different from anybody else's product, and you're not dependent on timelines that are set by somebody else. So if tomorrow you need a gambling element included in your sports live streaming, then you're going to get that element. We're not going to tell you you're dependent on anybody else's development in that pipeline. And that's how we are.
Okay, I get it. So you are what I would call a full spectrum service when it comes to content provision and anything, like you said, gambling, anything on the peripheries of that to facilitate a direct-to-consumer experience.
We build streaming platforms, right? So like that is at the core of the business. Now, whether that is short for content, or whether that is audio, or whether that is the full. If you are the World Ice Hockey League and you want your own streaming platform tomorrow, you would come to see us, because we will build you this with a modularity that is going to allow you to develop your entire fan engagement business around that. That is what Quick Play is, and it's going to give you the. I'm going to give another example, right? So we work very deeply integrated with other partners who are specialists in things like AI. I think AI is a great example, right? It's the buzzword of the moment. If you're raising any funds and you mention the word AI enough in your presentation, you're likely to get to get funded. We take it really a notch above that. So a large part of our customer base are aggregators, right? Like telcos who have an existing business. Um, they have a streaming product, very often built on sort of legacy technology. They want to move and improve that product, and they have a variety of content services running on their platform. We will come in, and our product is going to allow to have everything in a standardized CMS, which is at the heart of our business, right? And that is going to allow you to have unified data models around the business. And then you were at IBC, I was at IBC. We did a joint presentation with Google at IBC around our AI-powered media assistant, which essentially goes into the catalog that is set into that CMS, and it's going to look across all of your services. And as an example, I always give this example because I think it's a fantastic example that's going to resonate well here in Europe and the Middle East. Is if you were to ask our media assistant, you're a content owner, you're an aggregator, show me every piece of content. And literally, this is voice command, right? You say, show me every piece of content you have on the platform that has an Aston Martin in it. The AI assistant will be able to show Formula One or a James Bond movie or Top Gear or any of these other pieces of content. It is that smart and modular. And the power of AI within the business is really something that we're able to unlock just by the way the architecture is structured. And so we see a massive area of growth by the fact of how the business is built, how the product is built, because the business is built around our capability to continue to stay innovative. So if tomorrow there is another element of machine learning that becomes crucial, right, to the business, and so obviously the advances in how metadata is structured, like everybody will talk about metadata. I would really argue we are the only platform out there where the level of opportunity that still exists in improving that metadata in terms of how you're going to serve your users, because for a lot of these telcos, you're not in acquisition mode anymore, right? You are in user retention mode. That is really going to help do that just in terms of how you serve your customers.
Wim, it strikes me that Quick Play, in this third iteration of its existence, have very consciously and enthusiastically set yourself up as the provider that is not only extremely comprehensive in what you can do now, but you're proud of being ahead of the curve. And that feels like something, a posture that you intend to maintain as part of your brand identity. You've mentioned metaverse, you've mentioned AI, there's also augmented reality, virtual reality. It wouldn't surprise me at all to hear that you've either got modules already or certainly under construction that start to anticipate the convergence of these technologies into how the consumer might start to enjoy content in the future. Would you agree with that? Is that a good interpretation of Quick Play and your posture in the market against the competitive horizon?
I think the way to look at it, right, is we are the only cloud native, fully modular streaming provider out there. And so that is the core of the business. That is there. So you get the best product for a tier one provider out there, while leaving you the flexibility to look at the future and say, these elements are starting to become relevant for the business. As long as there is an API, the platform is set up to do these things. And so the way we are structured as a business is we have our business, right, which is the business that is focused on delivering streaming services for our customers. And so we do that at scale, right, like with 10 million concurrent users on something like the Super Bowl as an example. Or we do that for audio with people that are within that space, or we do that for live and VOD customers around the world in terms of delivering that. And our customer success and our sales engineering teams are focused on that. And then there is an entirely separate part of the business which is focusing on delivering future-looking modules for the business that are just improving on the product and building new modules as they become relevant. And that is not going to impact your timeline as a customer because you're running your own instance. And the minute you say, I would now like a multilingual model that is going to serve this part of the business, we will pull that off the shelf, integrate it in your business, and you will have that in a timeline that nobody else is going to be able to deliver because the product is built in a way that is modular, is future-proof, and is entirely based on your single tenancy in the cloud.
Feels a little bit like a Formula One car, Wim. You know, depending on the track and the climate conditions and what kind of race you want to run, everything's there in the pit lane. You just pull it off the shelf.
I think that's exactly the way to look at it. And I think when you look at the way the industry is evolving, right? If there is anything I've learned over my career within, in particular in media and tech, is that if there is anybody out there telling you that he can predict the future, he is full of shit. Excuse my French on this, but we have all seen, and I've seen this, right, from the investment side as well as from the being pitched these ideas in terms of, well, you need to build a metaverse around these things now, and I think we can talk about that for a long time as well. But some of these things do become true, right? You remember the 3D TV? We don't
I was thinking of Sony mini disc, Wim. You know, I loved that, but it came and it went probably within the space of 24 months.
There you go. So, and we're all visionaries, and we're all, and I think there are large organizations out there that don't necessarily need to be first movers, right? They can, and that's our customer base, right? The tier one movers. If you are a large established telco today, or you're a large established media organization, I think you have the, I wouldn't call it a luxury, but I think often it is prudent to wait and see a little bit in terms of which one of these things actually is going to become relevant before you pivot your entire business to go and chase that tennis ball now, right? So do I need to fully Swift platform to being metaverse capable? And I don't think you do. What I think you do need to do is work with partners that are going to allow you the flexibility to actually go and do those things once they become a reality. And I think that is a more prudent way and a more business savvy way for larger tier one customers to run their business. And with quick play, you really get that. And I know you can see the excitement is building, right, as I talk about this. But as a former business owner, right, in a large media organization, it is definitely how I would look at the business. Is I want all of these capabilities, but I don't necessarily need them now. I don't want to be paying for them now. But if they do become relevant, I want to have the capability to actually integrate them into my platform. And that's what you did.
So Wim, tell me whether or not you've encountered this as well, because I know from speaking to other chief executives and C-suite individuals on your competitive horizon, in the broadcast and media space, many harbour the ambition to migrate more towards an entirely cloud-based, virtualized infrastructure. And the interesting thing that I've spoken to them about is the psychology, the buying psychology. I love the word biology when it comes to that aspect of how CFOs think, particularly, because when you're talking about the tier one space, quite often those organizations will be quite used to how they account for on-prem assets when they buy their kit that goes in the rack, right, into their comms room or wherever they put it, and depreciating and amortizing that over a period of years, right? So that's how they're used to their balance sheets running. To chop over and go from that kind of capex-based investment in on-prem equipment to the more opex-based massively more efficient model of paying for what they take that you've just described. Is that a big hurdle in the sales life cycle when you're going into new accounts, incremental logos, for example, to spotlight exactly what the benefits are of moving to the cloud native model? Is that something that you encounter, or is it not something that really appears on your warning radar?
I would actually argue that it's less of a hurdle rather than a facilitator, because, as I mentioned earlier, we do everything. We do everything from AV pipeline to reference apps that work across iOS, Android, Android TV, Apple TV, you name it. But as you rightly mentioned, there is very often a lot of investment in custom built things that serve the purpose of an organization better. As long as there is an API, we will integrate. So we don't need to own your AV pipeline process. If you have an AV pipeline process that is working, like, we will integrate it. And I would say 90% of the engagements that we get involved with start off like that. They start off by, we have a problem, we have a latency problem, we have a, how do we solve for this? But I want to keep these and these and these elements. And whether that is something that's built in-house, or you are working with a partner like an Evergent or Clean or any of these guys, right? Like, do identity management, do monetization, we do all of those things. But if you have integrated work streams, we're an API built product business. As I said, there are 300 modules, right? You don't need to take all 300. You have something that is working on the rendering side, or you have your own player, or you have your own. There is nothing stopping you from working with QuickPlay as an organization, because chances are we have likely done that integration somewhere else already. If it's a partner, very likely. And if it is on-prem, then our team is well capable actually of integrating with your work flows that are already there. And you're absolutely right that so I see three types of opportunities, right, for us as a business. I see the large media organizations and these established media players, the aggregators, the telcos, and then I think a particular thing for us here in the region, the sports organizations and the sports IP owners. The first two I would put into the bucket of a Sky in the UK, right, is a large engineering organization. Like, they will build and have large engineering teams. Any of the Liberty-owned businesses like the Telenet, the Ziggos, they are engineering organizations, right? So those are a set of customers where you're having a discussion around how do I integrate. I think on the sports side, in particular here in EMEA, the engineering part and the actually direct to consumer element is very new. So there is less of a legacy element of how do you integrate. There is more of a fan focus in terms of, I would like it to do all of this, but I don't want to have large managed services or professional services on site. So that is a different approach than the former two. And the beauty of it is we do all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. What do you think 2024 is going to look like? When I've asked people to reflect on 2023, 90% of them have said to me that it was a course correction year after the kind of post-COVID, to use aviation terms, runway, gaining massive altitude really quickly, and then getting used to the weather conditions up there. What's 2024 going to look like, Wim?
I think we are going to see an element of, and I'm talking more at a macro level now, because I don't think you can completely separate the OTT element from the larger media and tech space, right? So very, very uncontroversial statement, and I'm sure anybody will tell you that we're going to see more machine learning and artificial intelligence capabilities being integrated into the media business overall. And I would say that's going to start on the production side, right through the metadata side, right to the Gen AI, like the delivering of things, right? I think that's going to do a couple of things probably at a macro level for the industry. It's going to create efficiencies, helping to focus, I think, organizations on the things that are going to be more value accretive. I think it is also going to massively challenge businesses that have large legacy technology stacks that are not capable in terms of doing this. So
Expensive stack.
it's going to create opportunity. I think it is going to create new monetization models. I have said this before, and I still very firmly believe that to be the case. I think catalog one day will be traded in a very similar way that advertising is traded today. I mean, fully programmatic. And we're not there yet, but I do think that the matching of content with eyeballs and the monetization model there is going to be vastly different. There is no reason why the buying, in particular, of very data driven, like a streaming world is a much more data driven. I remember from my Yahoo days, right, telling the customers asking us, well, but how do you measure all of this, right? And this was when we were shifting advertising dollars from TV into online, and you needed to explain why it would be a good way to do that. And you started talking about, well, we measure this and this and this, and we match audiences and all of that, and then say, well, how do you measure this? And you have to go back to your customer and say, but what are you actually measuring on traditional TV? Nothing. You're selling something, and the broadcaster is telling you it got X many eyeballs, whether it was actually seen or how long for, or whether actually people left to go to the bathroom during that commercial break. None of it was measured. I think we're going to see the next evolution of that in terms of how content gets matched with eyeballs and the use of data in terms of how that gets monetized. And I think the traditional, it is advertising. Essentially, what I think I'm predicting is we're going to see a more shift towards retail advertising. But I think the retail advertising doesn't necessarily need to sit with the Amazons and the other. I think everybody within the content business is going to have the capability to be in that business. So you're going to see new monetization models for content. And catalog content is going to be traded in a different way. And platforms are going to be built with the level of modularity that I may not have this content licensed for a period of time on my platform anymore, but I'm going to have this content licensed through a micro license to serve to Chris Redmond in Dubai today, and you're going to see that. One more element I think we're going to see is you're going to see a shift of sports rights holders to a focus on direct-to-consumer. I think one of the things that I found was really and genuinely interesting to see was World Rugby talking about their direct-to-consumer platform. Yeah. And I think for a sports like rugby, the Rugby World Cup is the third largest sporting event in the world in terms of overall viewership. Now, it's because of the length that it goes, but Americans are not focused on rugby at the moment at all. You have many other nations where there is no rugby focus. There is no reason for rugby to be like that. Like, it is a compelling sport. It has an element of drama, of respect. I think there are great values in rugby for advertisers. So it's a sport that should have everything there to succeed, right? So I think a direct-to-consumer approach there really serves a purpose, because it's actually going to help you develop new audiences, and if you can do that in a way that is scalable, I think it is a fantastic way to do. There are other sports out there that are like that, right? And
Mm.
thinking golf and tennis, which tennis has a real audience problem, right, in terms of how they serve. So I think you need to do something there. You're going to see other rights holders do that as well, and you're going to see innovation in terms of elements that those streaming platforms are going to have versus a more lean back and consumption element of it.
Mm.
And then
It's interesting hearing you talking about tennis, because I think Carlo DeMarcus, the man with a scarf, or the guy with a scarf, as he's branded himself recently since departing from OTTRED as one of the kind of founding employees there, has been speaking about tennis a lot recently on his productions on LinkedIn that I know get a lot of eyeballs. And I know what you mean about rugby as well. I obviously, as a British guy, was brought up with rugby, the physicality of it, how exciting it is, the range of different strategies involved with rugby. It's interesting hearing you enlighten us as to what the potential of that is as an estate. When we're coming towards the end of the time.
Yeah, I think the last element, Chris, maybe if I may, before we hop off, is I think you're going to see more consolidation in the market. I think there are going to be legacy players that are going to merge, and I think we've seen it probably in North America a little bit more than we've seen it in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. But we're going to see more consolidation of players here. I think all three, in the UK specifically, I think Germany and France, there is ways actually for media businesses to work better together in a way as well. And then the last element, I think you're in the right region in the Middle East for sure, because I think there is so much drive and innovation coming out of the Middle East. And every time I am in the region and I visit, I am blown away by the level of can-do attitude and positivism that is there. And despite all the, it is sports washing or tech washing or entertainment washing, whatever you want to, greenwashing, whatever you want to call it, I think there is a genuinely different way business is being done and conducted in the Middle East that radiates positivity, that I cannot help but be excited about the opportunities in the Middle East as a region, because the attitude is so refreshing to see.
Yeah, it's incredible. As someone lucky enough to wake up every morning in that environment, I can definitely confirm that it pushes the ignition button every day. You know, you can smell it in the air. Look, when there's one question that I ask everybody at the end of their first OTTRED Spotlight podcast, and as this is your first guest appearance, I want to extend this to you as well, because I'm always fascinated with the reaction when I ask a question, as well as the response. If you could go back and give the younger you one piece of advice, what would it be?
It's a good one. Be more positive. I am a cynical bastard, I think, by nature, and you wouldn't probably notice that when talking to me, but I see the risk in every, and I do things that are inherently risky, like throwing yourselves off 20 meters waterfalls is risky, right? So I will look at everything, evaluating the risk. I'm not afraid to go, but I think it does make you cynical. And I think I've become less cynical and more positive and more open to outside ideas. And I think you learn more from the things that you were absolutely wrong about than from the things that you were right about. And in my case, that has definitely been the case. I've gone flat on my face a few times not just in my career, but in my personal life as well. You need to reinvent yourself, and I think I've held back from doing things because I was afraid of the risk, and there are things that I haven't done or hadn't done yet, and I've only done recently. Like entrepreneurship is one of those things, and standing on your own feet and essentially saying and believing. And I would probably have done that. If I would have done that earlier, I think I would have maybe enjoyed certain things more than I have until now. That's the one piece of advice that I would give the younger self.
Wim, I have known you for most of this year. 2023 has been the year where we've become friends as well as professional acquaintances. I've enjoyed every single interaction with you. You are insightful as well as funny in the OTTRED WhatsApp group. So you've developed even more reputational gravity there. And I want to say that this encounter, as your episode of the OTTRED Spotlight podcast, has been no less impressive. And I'm personally and professionally grateful for your time, Wim. So thank you so much for being a guest on the OTTRED Spotlight podcast. Maybe we can do one again in a year or so and get an update on your predictions for 2024 and what really happened.
Super. Listen, Chris, I would love nothing more. And again, I think there is so much value in the community that you have created. I love the interaction with people. I love the footprint of the community. I bump into OTTRED people all over the world, and whether that's on the customer side or whether that is on the partner side or whether that is just on thought leadership. And I've enjoyed the last year massively working with you. And like, to be honest, I wouldn't recommend many other things, but if you are within this space, like, it is definitely worth joining the community. And it's really good to be connected with people who understand the industry, who are active in this industry every day, and who just have the can do and let's take a little bit of risk attitude that you've displayed towards this, because people always see the success part of it, right? You know, the proverbial iceberg picture. They see the top of that and they see, oh, well, seems to be going well and all of that. They don't see the hard slog that is behind building things, and the failures, the times that you do go flat on your face, or the impact it does have on your personal life or we've all been there. And I generally do think that it's the part of professional career that people do not talk about. Like, I'm at a stage in my life where I literally do not care. Like, I actually prefer talking about the things that did not go well, because I think there's lessons in there for other people. And like, to be honest, I learn more from people telling me like what went wrong about a particular thing, so you can learn and try to do it in a different way. But people are always so obsessed with projecting themselves in a way that like everything is perfect. Is yeah,
It's not real life.
so yeah, thank you for doing all you do, Chris, for the industry and for the community.
I enjoy it, Wim, and it's a pleasure because I get to know people like you and the hundreds of others around the world. Listen, take care. Merry Christmas to you and your family, and hopefully we'll speak before the end of the year, probably on our WhatsApp group with the rest of the guys.
Very likely will. Thank you for having me. Much appreciated. Bye, Chris.
Thank you, Wim.